You can teach a kid just as much at the grocery store as you can in a museum, maybe more. My entire academic life has been devoted to figuring out tricky ways to get at causality, because the world doesn't just offer you up causality. Okay, what you see in the world is correlation. What the world gives you is things are moving together or they aren't. But to be useful, you need to dive down to be able to strip away what's causing what, what's not causing what. The data that we've looked at suggests that by the time you actually have a kid, most of the choices you make that will make you a good parent, you've already made them.
So if you go to the store and buy 10 parenting books, it's probably not going to really help the kid that much. But the fact that you're the kind of person who, as a parent, cares enough to go buy 10 parenting books, even if you don't read them, that probably means you're a pretty good parent. It's just don't think that the books are going to have a magic effect.
Released in 2005, the book FREAKONOMICS, A Rogue Economist Explores the Hidden Side of Everything, became a New York Times bestseller and sold over 4 million copies worldwide. Written by economist Stephen Levitt and New York Times journalist Stephen Dubner, the main premise of FREAKONOMICS is that economics is, at its root, the study of incentives, and since practically everything has to do with incentives, economic theory can be applied to practically any subject you have data for, from parenting to crime to race. Now there's a documentary of FREAKONOMICS, which takes a novel approach at illustrating some of the book's chapters by allowing some of America's best documentarians to take a crack at them in their own unique styles. In the parenting section, the main question is what effect parents' decisions really have on kids. Morgan Spurlock, director and star of the Oscar-nominated doc Super Size Me, addresses this in A Rashonda by Any Other Name, where he uses fast pacing and his trademark humor to look at baby names, their questionable importance, and whether we live up or down to the names we've been given. The main focus is on the differences between what we consider black names and white ones, where studies have shown that a person with a whiter sounding name like Trevor will get hired faster than someone with a stereotypically black sounding name like Tyrone or Deshaun, even if they have identical resumes. It turns out there are competing incentives at work, a name that expresses cultural identity or a less distinct one that might help job prospects. The animated It's Not Always a Wonderful Life is directed by Eugene Jarecki, who directed the award-winning doc Why We Fight. This piece looks at cause and effect and, more accurately, that correlation is different from causation. Jarecki explores the drop in the crime rate that happened in the 1990s, which most attributed to improved law enforcement strategies, harsher sentencing, and fewer guns on the street. But when Levitt examined the data, he found something more interesting and a lot more controversial, that there was a strong link between the sharp drop in crime rates across the nation and the legalization of abortion 20 years prior. Rachel Grady and Heidi Ewing, co-directors of Jesus Camp, bring their verite style to Can a Ninth Grader Be Bribed to Succeed?, the only story that isn't from the book. In an experiment funded by the University of Chicago, high school students were given $50 for every grade they got above a C, as well as a ride in a tricked-out Hummer limo and the chance to win a raffle for $500. With an incentive like that, along with the dismal prospects high school dropouts face, an improvement in grades would seem natural. But as the film follows two underachieving boys over the course of a school year, we see that strong incentives aren't always enough to dislodge bad habits. Even though the 4 mini-docs have widely varying styles and subjects, with intermediary segments directed by the King of Kong director Seth Gordon, it's hard not to compare them and pick a favorite. And for me, the best piece by a mile is Alex Gibney's Pure Corruption, a film noir-esque investigation into cheating and corruption in the world of sumo wrestling. Gibney, who won an Oscar for his doc Taxi to the Dark Side and lived in Japan for several years, seems to be operating on a totally different level than his fellow documentarians, as a story that starts with statistical proof that sumo wrestlers are fixing matches spirals outward in true noir fashion to involve murder, an indictment of the Japanese police force, parallels with the recent economic crash, and finally, an examination of Japan's ancient value system. In the end, the experiment of using multiple directors turns out to be FREAKONOMICS' biggest problem. While I was captivated by Pure Corruption and Can a Ninth Grader Be Bribed to Succeed, I wasn't that crazy about the other two pieces, which felt more like essays where I was told information instead of stories where I discovered it. And a problem with FREAKONOMICS is that if you aren't digging one of the segments, you're stuck with it for the next 20 minutes, making for an uneven and sometimes frustrating viewing experience. Still, when FREAKONOMICS is good, it's very good, and the concept at its base, that incentives matter and conventional wisdom is often wrong, is a powerful one that might help us figure out why the world is actually the way it is. I'm Jonathan Kim, and this is a ReThink Review.